Hey everyone, and welcome back to IDEANTHRO Movement. Yes, movement. We have a big announcement today, which is we are diversifying our interests here away from our traditional, for many years now, urban water management theme and into human movement. It might seem like a curious transition, but there's a decent story to it. There's a very good reason to it. Today is not the day that I'm going to tell that though. Today is the day that we are going to start to get into a series explaining our movement philosophy. And all this week, these first 5 episodes, we are going to be talking about one of our main tenets of our movement philosophy, which is variety of movement. So let's get into this a little bit more about why it's IDEANTHRO movement and what that actually means at the end of the video. So one of the main tenets of our movement philosophy is that there should be a huge amount of variety in our movement. Now, by movement philosophy, we mean what might traditionally have been thought of as fitness or exercise or the like. We use movement philosophy because it's a slightly different flavor that we give a few different things. But variety, one of the key components of our movement philosophy, getting a huge amount of different movements into our movement practice. We believe that it's really important to a healthy and sustainable and safe long-term practice. To explain why this is the case, I need to introduce a little bit of context. In the exercise, health and fitness, strength and conditioning worlds, there is a principle called the SAID principle, S-A-I-D, as in I said something. What that stands for is specific adaptations to imposed demands. S-A-I-D, specific adaptations to imposed demands. Let's break down what that means. Let's start with an imposed demand first. An imposed demand is anything that you ask your body to do. So if I ask my body to pick up my phone here, that was an imposed demand upon my body. If I go skateboarding, there's a skateboard just off shot out of the camera. If I lift a weight in the gym, if I pick my kid up off the floor, if I carry a bag of chicken feed, these are all imposed demands. Adaptation, working backwards out of this now, adaptation is how your body changes as a result of those demands. So if you're going to the gym, for example, you are expecting something about your health and fitness to improve, and hopefully in a positive manner. The adaptation, the change, the improvement, that is the adaptation. You adapt in response to imposed demands. So if let's pick something from the traditional strength and conditioning world. If I did a whole bunch of barbell deadlifts, right, that would be an imposed demand, and I would be expecting my body to adapt to that. I just got swooped by a bird. I would be expecting my body to adapt to that by getting stronger in some number of different ways, whatever I was trying to achieve with those deadlifts. Specific then is the really important word in this saying, because what it says is that the adaptations that occur are very closely related to the imposed demands. Doing a whole bunch of heavy deadlifts doesn't do a lot to make you a better long distance runner. It does do a bit though. There is definitely crossover. Let's give another example. A bench press, for example, which is a horizontal pressing movement, doesn't do a lot to improve an overhead press, which is a vertical pressing movement. So the adaptation is very specific to the imposed demand. And it's not just in a strength setting. For example, have you ever seen someone who's a really keen cyclist, but it does no running? So they might cycle for hours every day, right? And then suddenly you ask them to go and run in any way, shape or form, but let's just say it's a long distance run, so it's in their wheelhouse. They get crushed by it because their body has adapted specifically to the cycling and not to the running, even though we're talking both about endurance events in that context. So specific adaptations to imposed demands. Why this is important is the fact that our bodies have evolved in response to the environment that was around for our ancestors. The reality is that the modern world has been around for a relatively short period of time as a component of our overall time. The bird's now hanging out right beside me. As an overall time of our species on this planet. And that pre-modern, pre-industrialized world, now it flew behind the camera, that pre-modern, pre-industrialized world had a huge amount of variety in it. Just think about if you went for a bushwalk, say up a rocky creek bed. Just think about the incredible amounts of movement variety that your body was exposed to. Just think about if you went out and had to hunt some prey, the huge variety of movement that your body was exposed to. Just think if you're collecting berries and you've got to get down underneath, went out of shot there, underneath a bush for a minute, had to reach over something, had to reach through something. The huge amounts of variety that's played into this. We would contend, and this is one of the principles that underpins our movement philosophy here, is that because our bodies evolved to live in that environment with huge amounts of variety, our bodies have come to expect a really varied movement diet. The said principle then was a response to this, because the thing here is that in that same time period, our bodies evolved in a time where energy, aka food, but energy was scarce. So we also evolved to be really efficient with our energy. So we've got this world that's demanding huge amounts of things of us, which could therefore be a huge waste of energy. So in response, our bodies have evolved to try and be really efficient with everything that we do, aka lazy. So we have a situation where huge amounts of variety being imposed upon us in our movement, but our bodies want to do as little as they can and try and be really efficient to save energy when energy was scarce, because it takes lots of energy to do all this variety of stuff. That's where the said principle comes in, because the said principle is in effect our current explanation of that manifestation of trying to be really efficient. Why would our bodies adapt to anything that we weren't requiring it to do? It will do the absolute very little. The problem herein lies is the fact that the modern world doesn't have all that variety. Doesn't have those huge amounts of tasks we're being asked to do. You get up in the morning, you sit at the kitchen table, you eat your cereal, you jump in the car, you sit, you drive to work, you end up on the computer all day, you come home, you maybe lie down in bed at night, but not before you sat on the couch. There is far less variety in the modern world. And then we apply the said principle, adapting very specifically to what we do, and what we have is this net loss of ability. The said principle is meant to work hand in hand with a really varied world to keep us healthy. They're meant to pull in separate directions. But our modern world gets rid of the variety, and the said principle pulls us far too far in the direction of being efficient and losing abilities. So we need our movement practice to counteract that by bringing back in the variety that the world naturally imposed upon us in the first place. And so that is the rationale, that is the reason that we feel that our movement practices need to bring so much variety into the world, and far more variety than the traditional health and fitness sphere might bring in. Because you might be sitting here and going, oh yeah, I go to the gym, Jack. I do deadlifts on a Monday, I do bench press on Tuesday, I squat on Wednesday. No one who goes to a normal gym does that much legs relative to upper body. So it's actually probably, I do bicep curls on Monday, I do bench press on Wednesday, I do lat pull downs on Thursday. Anyway, you get the point. That's not the sort of variety we're talking about. We're talking about far more variety than that, because in the real world, say if you need to climb over something, I think of rock climbing, right? The gym equivalent to rock climbing is doing some pull-ups. Rock climbing in the real world has all these interesting grips and pulling directions in it. Far more variety than what a gym would normally impose. So just be clear on that when we're talking about variety, we're not talking about variety in the sense of I do a different program each day of the week and there's 3 movements in it each day. We're not talking about that. We're talking about far more subtle variety in our movement. Okay, that is enough for this episode. We have established the rationale for why variety is a key component of our movement practice here at IDEANTHRO Movement. If you like this episode, if you would like more of what we are doing here, find out more about what it is we're up to, you can find out more at IDEANTHRO, that's IDEANTHRO.com/movement. You can also find out about our facility in Oxley, that's in Brisbane, Australia. And if you want to get in touch, you can find us at IDEANTHRO.com/connect. Okay, that's it. Give us a like or subscribe if you want. We will see you next time.